region.
Well, the sun has risen, the cock crowed a long time ago, and that means it is time for you to go and start hustling. And also really as being a day after just a public holiday, then it's quite difficult, because yesterday, it being a Sunday, it was already Eid. I do understand that many people out there had fun, and you too also really as the viewer, I believe, had a wonderful time with your friends, families, because Eid is actually one of those very much important feasts for eating pilau, for eating meat, for eating other things, and that is how the day is actually celebrated. And I was able to see a number of people really mixing, moving from one place to another, and where I had some colleagues who told me that they ate up to 4 times, and really that is quite unfortunate. But we are back with the Monday edition of the KOKOLIRIKO live show. Today happens to be the 17th of the month of June. That means that very soon, just after 2 weeks, we shall be also really winding up with the month of June, and we shall be heading into July. But the question also really as the very important question out there to you, the viewer, is how are you faring with the year, and how is the year taking you? Are you driving the year, or is the year driving you? If the year is driving you, what is the problem? And if at all you are driving the year, what message do you have for the colleagues out there? Because these two mean differently, and the two really mean two different things. Because if I say you driving, that means that it is working in your favor. But if I say it is driving you, then that is how it is also working against you. And that is one thing also really you should be able to find out. But nonetheless, you shouldn't give up, because we are back with also the Monday edition for the KOKOLIRIKO live show. My name is Swarish Majid, and we are going to be doing this with you up to the hour of 9 o'clock. And at 9 o'clock, that's when the news bulletin in Lubarati, we also expect them to be back for the Monday edition, because Sundays usually is a day for them to rest, and Mondays is actually when they come with full gear. That is up to Saturday also really in here. But later on, we shall also be having other programs which also really weekly, and this include among others the Nightcast news bulletin that will be coming from 7 p.m. Chukuchuku, as well as Wishu Time also really, plus many other more amazing programs will also really be coming your way. And that is how at the end of the day you must just sit at the comfort of your sitting room. For those of you watching us via Star Times channel 477, I believe your TV is placed in the sitting room. And also really for those maybe who are accessing us online, we also really saying it's a great pleasure having you on board this morning. You could be watching us on Facebook, you could be watching us via YouTube and many other platforms, but we are saying nonetheless we are back to keep you informed of what is happening in the world of current affairs. And now to begin off the discussions with what is happening in Eid, because it being the first day after Eid, then that means Eid is still moving on. But what messages we are spread across the country is what somebody could be interested in. But we need to begin the discussions right from Arua City, where we did see Muslims in Arua being called upon to embrace hard work, and this message was called upon by the district Qadi, that is Sheikh Abu Jafar, who also made this revelation after the prayers in Arua Primary. And during the prayers, he actually said many things continue to happen, and if at all somebody is not interested in hard work and thinking that they are going to be on that bed, and you as the viewer still are in that bed, if you think that you are going to be changing your life and without also really working hard, then you are doing what the mayor Arua City calls daydreaming. And that is one thing also I want to say we need to also really avoid. We need to now move out of that bed, step out and go start hustling, because that is actually one thing also really where we see this day also really being celebrated. And that was the theme for yesterday's prayers. And remember, Eid al-Adha is actually prayed also in honor of the Prophet Ibrahim, who was also really submissive to Allah. And when God asked him to sacrifice his only son in a dream, he was able to also really quickly also really not hesitate, and also really willingly allowed the son to also really go be slaughtered. And he called upon the son. The son didn't refuse to be slaughtered, because if he said if you are told this is God's dream, and then he had nothing to do. And after that dream, when they also really reached the process of bringing the knife and wanting to slaughter the son, that is when God sent a sheep from heaven for him to slaughter instead of also really slaughtering the son in. And that is one thing also we did see happening yesterday. But let's first connect that video of see what exactly happened, so for us to also really understand what the leaders say, because we did see as well as Ezamham Zamil, the Deputy Resident City Commissioner for Central Division, also really very much talking about that matter. For now, let's first have a look at that video as we bounce back shortly.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you. First of all, I thank West Nile TV for always following and broadcasting Muslim activities in West Nile, particularly in this city of Arua. Today marks the 10th day of the Hijjah, where Muslims celebrate Eid al-Adha, the slaughter for those who have ability to do so. For those who don't, they may share with those who have. We also take today's Eid message with the theme of enlightening our community about work. That Almighty has given us this energy, these resources. They are there with us, but that we are not putting them into use. And we have cast everyone, including the Creator. So we have taken today's message to the community to tell them that the problem is amongst ourselves, the problem is in ourselves, that let us adjust, let us change the way we do our things, the circumstances will change. The hard times we are going through will be uneasy if we can adapt to changes. It is just a psychological issue that you cannot just wake up in the morning and sit in a veranda and expect a change. It can't. It doesn't work like that. Even if you pray the whole day, it cannot come. It will only come if you pray, then you take time to go and work. Not only that, we also take today's Eid message to the community. The community is coming up, unlike the previous years. But there are still few, like 5 places in Arua where people pray Eid at verandas. Some group of clique of people with like-minded people on veranda under mango tree, trying to distance their family relatives from the bigger Muslim community. We are telling them, no, let us make Eid a uniformity, let us make Eid for us all. It is not only prayers, but there are other things that Almighty has put in this day.
Thank you so much. I want to appreciate the West Nile TV for having taken it as part of their responsibility to broadcast what has happened today. Eid is one of the biggest events in the Muslim community where Muslims gather together and celebrate and express their love to their fellow Muslims. I want to appreciate the leadership of Ghana Muslim Student Council in Arua branch for having delivered a very beautiful message to make sure that the Muslims are together, are united, are able to also do socio-economic works. You know, it is part of what the government is preaching, that whatever you are doing, you must put efforts to bail yourself out of poverty. Now, for us as people of the security, we monitor day and daily activities in the city, what people are doing day and night. For the last 1 month, there is a lot of improvement in the issues of security in the city, especially the boys who have been attacking women, grabbing their phones, laptops and so on. This one has at least reduced, and we are happy because of that. And as a Muslim community, I have been seeing the Muslim in the mosques and so on. They have been preaching, telling people let's desist from issues of criminalities and so on. The security and the leadership of the Muslim community of Arua City are together, are working together. There is a lot of collaboration, coordination, cooperation. That's why you see there is a steady progress in improving issues of security, and there is a reduction in criminality in the city. One of the issues we have also been seeing, some community members want to take the responsibility of the security people to institute an illegal arrest of the people. You know, if someone is a criminal, your work is to be alert and be very vigilant and give such information to the security, the police, so that the person can be arrested and taken to courts of law. But some people have taken that responsibility in pretense of arresting people and trying to reduce issues of criminality. But themselves, they also do it with the intent of also causing crime. You know, you can't go and arrest a criminal and also pick his phone. Who is now a criminal and who is who? No, that's why we are saying, let the issue of the security be handled by the security. As any ordinary citizens, we only give security and information.
Well, that is the message from both religious and security leadership, and that is one thing also we did see happening yesterday, and the messages that they did spread in there. And from security, issues of taking the laws into your hands, you have been questioned, and we are saying you must also avoid that now, because if at all you are taking up the laws into your hands, remember, human rights not permit also what we call torture, and much as these suspects also really have stolen something from you, they still have their freedom. That's from torture, and this can only maybe done through taking them to court. And that is one thing we are saying. If at all somebody has done something bad to you, you must avoid taking the laws into your hands. You must avoid beating them. You must avoid killing them, because they have a right to life, much as you, as the property of the owner, you have your right also to own property. But we are saying we must respect each other's rights, and that's from security. Meanwhile, from the district card, we must embrace hard work, because hard work was the main theme for yesterday's prayers. And we are saying, for those who have not yet embraced hard work, we are saying you must start working very, very hard now, because at the end of the day, if I don't tell you not working hard, you just want to wait and ask for fazureo or maybe something small, definitely that is really, really going to be very, very hard for you to attain your dreams. But that is where we need to leave what happened in Arua City aside, and now let's see what happened elsewhere. And now to begin off from Masaka Golf Course Ground in Masaka City, where the Muslims converged for the joint Eid prayer to mark the Eid al-Wadha prayers. The district card, that is also really, that is Sheikh Amir Abdallah Mutazindwa, reminded the faithful that the joint Eid prayers are part of the general effort to unite the faithful despite their respective Islamic sects. And that is one thing I did talk about, because the district card already very, very much talked about it earlier, that we have a section of Muslims today who want to pray alone in their small cocoons, which is really, really wrong, because we are saying prayers must be done, that is from what we call the big prayers, prayer places. For instance, in Arua City, we have a number of places being gazetted also for prayers, because look at what is happening in Arua primary school playgrounds, and also in Oli, where the Chibudi Fax also pray. These are the places that are recognized for Eid prayers, and I believe this is where we must also really pray from. But today we have a section of people who want to pray under their mango trees, who want to pray at their verandas with their families, and now they are pulling also really their people away from maybe the big congregation, because definitely while growing up I do also really understand that one important thing that I enjoyed very much was this Eid prayers, that where you move and pray in congregation. The squeezings we are really interesting, much as the population was usually huge. That was really, really amazing. But yesterday I did see the numbers dropping compared to Eid al-Fitr. The numbers where we did see, where I prayed from, I wouldn't also want to mention, the numbers actually dropped. I was able to see a huge chunk of space being left, and that means also there's a lot that needs to be done. And how can we make sure that this does not go on and on? Because we need to make sure that this does not go on, much as we have a lot of things to be doing. But really, how do we make sure that does not continue to happen? And that is really something at the end of the day we need to understand, because if at all we are not understanding that, then definitely that is really, really quite wrong. But we are saying people must ensure that they pray in numbers with their Muslim brothers and sisters, because that is one symbol of unity. If at all I'm not going to pray with my brothers, then I want to pray with my families aside, that is really, really wrong. And for those who are actually developing that attitude, we must desist from it, because it is never right. Because the Prophet also really did tell us that we must ensure we pray together, and Islam is actually brotherhood, and that means that also we need to also not avoid ourselves from the rest of our colleagues, and that means we also need to pray with our families, with our friends, with our neighbors together in these gazetted places. For instance, in Arua City, we have a number. I would also want to mention for instance, Central Division alone in the areas of Tanganyika, I would also mention a number of places that have been gazetted. For instance, Arua Primary School playgrounds, we have Naja Mosque area, and Fauz. These are the areas that are around my area, and we also have many, many other areas. For instance, also those that have been gazetted. But really, for us to see the numbers dropping, then that is really, really wrong. And that is where we did see the district card of Masaka also really calling upon and echoing out his voice in relation to also really what we did see the district card of Arua Muslim district also really calling upon that. And we also did see the deputy resident city commissioner for that area, that is Mr. Ahmed Katerega Msazi, also urging Muslims to embrace active politics among other leadership positions. And this is something also really I want to remind you that happened a few days ago, because we did, before the Eid celebrations, We did see one of the former ex-ministers, that is Gabriel Aridru, who is also the comeback in a rural district, where we did see him also heading to Vura to also really, support the Muslim community that side, with also some Eid package where we did see him dropping rice, sheep, goats for the Muslims in there for them to also really celebrate. And today this was given to the imams, because if you really see what happens in there, the district also really has about 22 mosques, which is really still very few, and for entire district to only have 22 mosques, that is very, very few. And why we are saying is we need more mosques from that area. And now the district also, which is seeking to have its own district, which would also be identified as Vura Muslim district, also would be quite amazing. But for them to achieve that, that means the numbers of Muslims first of all must increase. And to do that, one requirement Uganda Muslim Spring Council or Muslim district area also made for this group is for them to have a facility where they are going to be also allow the district to sit from. And now the group is in a fundraising drive to turn the old mosque into the new one, and this is actually where they need 12 millions. And the former minister also, who is also doubles as the former MP for a rural municipality, who was also here and later on moved to Vura, also promised the people to also deliver them some money, where he handed over 1 million. And the wife, who is also a Muslim, that is Hajat Aisha Alibai, who was in company, actually raised this concern of Muslims not having leaders to be able to represent their ideas, except the very few whom we have seen also taking vibrantly the floor of parliament, for instance Ibrahim Samujunganda and the rest, who are raising the flag very high. But really, what about the rest? And what does that mean also to the Muslims out there who are not also really into active politics? And we are saying Machaz, also this issue has been raised by the Deputy Representative Commissioner for Masaka. In the rural city, we also did have our in-law, that is Hajat Aisha Alibai, also really talking about the same matter. And that means we need to also make sure that we talk about this issue, because if at all we're not talking about it, then that is really quite unfortunate, and that will also not make the ideas and the views of the Muslims go further. But really, to avoid our issues remaining within the areas, we must also really make sure that we engage ourselves in what we call active politics. And that is one thing also really, at the end of the day, will also really mean that also really, they need to engage in politics. And the politicians, please, I'm not saying that also really we need to also really have more openness against you, but really, if that is the case, then because in Islam there is a saying that leadership comes from God, because if at all you are in that position, you are also destined by God, much as you struggle to reach in there. But it is God's decision that you could be the one to lead that area for maybe this quiet period of time. And that is one thing also we did see happening in Masaka, where we did also see that. Meanwhile, at Madinatul Munawara Mosque in Mende sub-county in Wakiso district, areas Chigozi, the district card also called for unity, while the testing also acts that are not also in line with Islamic teachings also in there. And in Kayunga, we didn't see the Kayunga NRM party chairperson, Mr. Moses Karwanga, also really asking Muslims to also reject selfish leaders, including politicians, that are there to divide the people and the population at large. And then told those who converged at Kitimbwa Mosque for Eid al-Adha prayers to engage in development projects for that is also for them to also realize development in there, as well as Sheikh Twaha Luega Hamisi, Dueluero Deputy District Card, rallied the faithful on unity and development as the only way by the Muslims to also fight against poverty in their families. And that is actually some of the things I feel I need to sort of let you know as the viewer, because if at all I'm not also really echoing out the different people's voices, and then that is really quite wrong. And that does bring us to the end of the first half of the hour. This is still the KOKOLIRIKO live show, and our final destination remains 9 o'clock. For now, let's have this important quick breather, and we bounce back shortly.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
Bellingham, Mbappe, Cristiano Ronaldo, Harry Kane, Sané, Griezmann, Lewandowski, and many more. Who is your European star? We are very familiar with all German stadia. Trust us to give you the best Euro experience affordably. Catch the matches live on NBA Sport, channel 255 on antenna or channel 199 on Dish Decoder on Star Times. We got your stars. This message is brought to you by Star Times Solar. Star Times Solar, more than just solar.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
Alright, welcome back from that short commercial breather. We are back to take you through after the hour of 9 o'clock. And now to begin off our discussions in the second half of the first hour, Gulu youth back Museveni on fight against corruption. That is something where we are seeing also in here, where Gulu youth have also, some of whom are subscribed to the ruling government of National Resistance Movement Party in Gulu City have backed President Museveni also in messages on intensifying the fight against corrupt leaders in there on June 15th. Hundreds of youth also marched on Gulu City streets calling community members to denounce corruption in the highest term possible also in there, and that is where also they did also praise President Museveni for. And Mr. Jacob, one of the group of members, also said the President Museveni is what should be put in action and urged the stern punishments to make corruption a risky and expensive vice. And more recently, the President has been often talking about corruption right from the budget reading speech, and up to date he continues to talk about corruption. But really, how can we make sure that we avoid the corruption that we are seeing today? Because corruption remains the deadly cancer that is actually eating our economy, as most leaders have said. But really, how best can we ensure the fight against corruption is actually put aside, because that is something that is really taking up our economy and also really biting seriously? And how do we make sure that the issues of corruption that we are talking about today does not go on? And that is something also really we need to also really interest ourselves in. But really, it is entirely in our hands, me and you, to also really avoid corruption. And how best are we going to be doing that? If at all you are seeing somebody in corruption, then we must report them that to police. But before we get to that, we must also make sure that we are not the ones also really promoting the corruption. Because if somebody is asking for a bribe from you and you give it out, then definitely you are the one promoting corruption. But really, we can still avoid that. We must avoid issues of bribes, because bribes has actually caused more damage than people with, that is also more so in offices. I wouldn't wish to also mention the offices, but really we have seen offices being infiltrated by corruption, and many of these offices actually where we see corruption, where people need services, for you to also really access the services, sometimes you are required to pay some amount, which is really a form of corruption, because I believe these offices have been also really catered for by the government. I don't know, as the viewer, which some of the officers you think are also promoting corruption. You can be able to also really share with us your experiences on the comment section, where we are already looking through to also really share with the rest of the viewers. But really, nonetheless, we are saying corruption must be avoided and must be condemned in the strongest terms, so that also really at the end of the day would not also really avoid also really getting the services. Because if at all we are not also really interesting ourselves in fighting corruption, then service delivery at the end of the day is going to be hampered, because money that will be able to be used in service delivery is going to be pocketed by some few individuals who at the expense of the publics. Maybe that's where we are saying we must avoid issues of also really keeping quiet on corruption. If you're seeing a colleague is in corruption, first of all, advise them, and if you cannot advise them, report them, so that solely they can be able to solely leave the corruption that we are talking about. And in Gulusti, we did see Wilson Oto, the General Secretary of NRM Youth Council and member of the Yellow Youth Movement, explained that the youth are also mobilizing for fresh leadership in the next general election solely in there, and that is something also which we are yet following up on. And as we already in 2024 have very few months solely to also usher us in 2025, and this is actually where we do see politics solely very, very much actively taking shape. But for now, we are saying the as much as the electoral roadmap has already been released, but EC, which is also the referee of elections, has not yet blown the whistle that is that elections. But what we are seeing today is many people actually already doing what we call on ground politics, and that is how at the end of the day that is also going to affect them. And we are saying that shouldn't be the case, because at the end of the day, if we start the politics now, and given the nature of our politics, which is really quite monetarized, I don't know how much money you will be able to spend ahead of 2026, because we are still in 2024, and you have started campaigning and spending the monies that you would also maybe use ahead of 2026 now. But really, I don't know where that will be able to put you, somebody who is eyeing a position, or maybe somebody who is seeking to retain ahead of 2026, because I believe that is going to be having its own impact, that's on cost. And that is why we are saying you must also think about your pockets before you start also engaging in politics at this time of the period, which is really not gazetted, also not officially declared for politics, but really to also engage yourself in politics. This time it is really quite wrong, and that is one thing also I need to also really remind the politicians of, and we need to avoid this. But really today we are seeing that very, very much also being exposed during funerals, turning funerals into campaigns, wedding ceremonies, per day into politics, which is really, really wrong. I'm not saying politics is not good, much as we need also these positions, but we are saying we must wait for the right time, because for you to start doing it now, it is, I believe it's not the right thing. It's not the right time for us to also engage ourselves in politics at this time, and that is why we are saying we must avoid what we call politics of this time. And one thing also that came out during one of the engagements is politics of divisionism, which we did see also our leaders also very, very much echoing concern on. And one of the leaders actually who often talks about politics of divisionism is Honorable Wadrisam Nyakwa, the mayor of Rural City, who actually made this revelation and asked for to desist from tendencies of taking the laws against their hands. And this is also actually during time of politics, where somebody goes and attack you up to your bedroom, and also talk about something that's happening in your kitchen, which is really, really wrong. And that is how at the end of the day we have seen fights happening between camps of different politicians. And to avoid this ahead of 2026, my humble advice to the politicians is actually we need to do what we call fair politics. We must also really respect also the boundaries that are in place. We must desist from tendencies of also really wanting to blackmail our colleagues. And at the end of the day, that is also going to be having its own negative repercussions on both the electorates and also the service delivery in there, because if at the end of the day you have lost elections, you're not going to be reuniting, and then that is also going to be affecting also what we call the voters, whom I also very, very much believe calling as the electorates. And that's why we are saying, much as also we lose the elections, these are games where the voters can be able to also declare and also show interest in whom they want. And that's why we are saying, much as you have lost, we must work hand in hand or shoulder by shoulder to also make sure this, the services reach on ground and to each and everybody, and that would also be quite well. And we are saying, when we want to also see development in our areas, we must avoid issues of what we call cheap politics. And this is something also which is said to be dragging Western Nile sub-region behind, because each and every time where some of the leaders from this region also get the platform to also meet those top leaders, one thing that they forget is that they are West Nilers, and they start blackmailing, this one did this one is like that, this is like this, and which is really wrong. And also we did see most leaders saying this is actually one thing that is costing the region and we need to work together. And much as I have beaten in the election, that does not also really separate and take the fact that you are my brother from West Nile sub-region away. And that is why we are saying we must also really embrace unity as we are heading towards the time of politics in there. And during the State of Nation address, which was on June 6th this month, President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni said the government will stamp out corruption, noting that all those who are corrupt will also be thrown out, because this is actually one thing also where we didn't see him actually alluding to, that corruption is actually up to State House, where there are some individuals at State House who also have to maneuver their ways also for visiting the President Museveni through corrupt means. And this is where at the end of the day, some investors have actually found their ways into meeting the President, which he said is actually wrong, and he promised to also fight that. And we are waiting for his next piece also to realize maybe if at all he has worked towards that, because cleaning of the house also sometimes is something where we need to also give emphasis for, because if at all we are not doing that, then definitely at the end of the day the songs about corruption are going to be remaining. Because earlier on, when I was when we were still young, while growing up as a kid of about 3 to 4 years, I used to listen to that song of corruption, corruption, corruption. That was a song that we knew, and that is actually where we didn't know much about corruption. But today we are very much seeing corruption, and it is actually very, very much reflected. And something that was actually saying this song is the song of the day today, where we are seeing action rather than also really the song itself. But really, how can we make sure that also really the issues of corruption that that's not started this year or maybe some 5 years back, but started a long period of time, also really realizes success? Because if you really see what's happening in Uganda, then corruption is actually said to be at its peak. But really, how can we make sure that we also reduce corruption is the question. Also really, I must also really ask you as the viewer, what do you think needs to be done to those corrupt leaders and those who are engaging in corruption, and also each and everybody who is out there doing corruption? Because corruption actually remains one of those deadly cancers that is actually eating up the nation, eating up society at large. But really, how do we make sure that this does not go on? Because corruption surely has costed the nation. And how has it costed the nation? Somebody will be asking that. And money that would be able to go to the hospitals is going to be pocketed in the hands of the people. Drugs that reach out the hospital that we are also destined for the sick patients goes into somebody's pockets. And money that will be used for constructing these schools is pocketed by somebody at the expense of thousands and thousands and millions of Ugandan children. And the road that would also be used by millions and hundreds of citizens will be also pocketed in there. And once a kilometer of the road is not worked well, and then you are also at the risk of having so many accidents, and also these roads span also not being able to reach out and also reach at the final years that they were also planned for. And that's why we are saying we must avoid issues of corruption, because corruption remains a deadly cancer that is actually eating up the nation and eating up the society at large. But at the end of the day, I believe that is where we need to also interest ourselves in, because if at all we are not interesting ourselves with the issues of corruption, and then that is really, really wrong. And that is something where we did see in Blue City, where in recent months several legislators and also ministers have been implicated in corruption scandals, and the response foreign countries including UK and US issued sanctions against some of these leaders. And we did see also some of the ex-ministers, among whom also include our colleague who in the media, who was solely barred from accessing the United Kingdom and the US in their plus their spouses, because this also does not remain only to the officials, but also it goes up to their families. And that is where we did also see that happening. And subsequently, where we did also see Parliament recently also arresting 3 parliamentarians, including that Paul Akamba of Busiki constituency in Namutuba district, Yusuf Matembuli of Bunyole East constituency and in Butaleja district, and Sisi Namuju Dionisia, the woman MP that's of Luengo district, where also they were arrested on allegations of soliciting undue advantage of 20% of the budget of the Uganda Human Rights Commission for financial year 2024-2025 from Ms. Mariam Wangadia, the commission chairperson in there. But really, this is wrong. And also we did see also one of those people who were who was granted bail, also really being denied bail at the end of the day in there. But really, that is something we didn't see happening, but we are yet following up on and maybe see how this matter will be able to end, and we need to also leave that aside. And now let's look at something that happened somewhere. And when we talk about early sex being bad, and some people think that also it is just something also to also stop them from the sweetness of the elders' food. But today we are seeing many, many young children becoming young mothers, where that is also not going very well with them. And now a senior student who gave birth also strangled the baby to death. And this is really quite unfortunate, and that is why we need to also have time with our children as parents. We need to tell them to also avoid issues of early sex, and at the end of the day, that would also spare them from what we call early pregnancies in the policing central region of District of Mityana are now investigating circumstances under which a senior female student that is at Elites College Mityana delivered a baby and strangled the baby to death in there. An incident occurred on Saturday morning, so that's at a private clinic that located in Kakumambogo cell in Tamu Division, Mityana municipality. And according to neighbors, the student whose names have been withheld for now went to Nats Medical Center claiming that she was feeling pain in the stomach. And when the nurses attended to her, the pain worsened, and she requested also to move out to ease herself in the pit latrine, which the nurses accepted. And also that is where we did see this incident also emerging. And she said also that she rushed the police and to the scene, and she said the police rushed the scene, and unfortunately also the baby was already dead in there. And this follows where the nurse also took the baby to the latrine and strangled her to death in there. This is really quite wrong, and then we need to also tell people that they need to avoid issues of early sex. And this goes to our girl child, much as you also need to have yourselves engaged in that bad activity. But we are saying the time is not now. The time will come. The time will come where you will be able to have enough of that. But for now, let's concentrate on the books. And this is where the parents, the aunties, the guardians, the grandfathers need to have time with the girl child. And this is where the girl child is actually very much vulnerable, given the fact that the demands of the girl child are usually more than the boy child. And this is how sometimes only the boy child, not only the boy child, the men also, I do not want to call them male child, but the men also sometimes take advantage of this girl child. And this is really a bad thing, and we need to also really say these mature men who are taking advantage of these young girls. Imagine a senior to really, this is still young, and at the end of the day we need to also really ensure that we think about them, because these are the future leaders. We need to avoid issues and tendencies of also taking advantage of these young girls. And this is one thing also really, as the viewer, I need also to inform you of, because if I'm not informing you about it, then definitely that is really quite wrong. And where the incident happened, Miss Florence Nachimbugwe, an administrator at Elites College, also told the monitor that as a school, they didn't detect also the students' pregnancy, even though the school conducts regular pregnancy tests in there. And as much as this girl also had the feeling of wanting to go back, but really we are saying the government of Uganda gives actually you the mandate to go back after school, and after giving birth, still you would also be able to also continue back with school, but for you to strangle your baby that you also would have carried for 9 months just like that, then that is really quite unfortunate. And we are saying that shouldn't be the case, and we need to avoid that. And we need to also tell the girl child to avoid such issues, such that also we would not also really see more children being strangled, because this is actually a child that would also maybe be the future president and future vice president, future minister, future MP. But for us to also have this child strangled just like that is really quite wrong, and she has committed a crime, because human rights not permit also to take life of another, because this child is actually one life that has also been lost in there, and that is really quite wrong. And now let's leave that aside. But my humble and last message to the parents would actually be that let's make sure we give the girl child what they require. And when I talk about what they require, first of all, the necessities and the advice is very much important. Telling them they need also not avoid, or they need not to engage themselves in early sex would actually work out for them. And that is where we need to leave that discussion aside. Now let's move to also where corruption fight is. Earlier on we were talking about corruption, and now IG to arrest leaders who return money to consolidated fund, which has already been termed as a form of corruption in there. And now the Deputy Inspector General of Government, Dr. Patricia Acham Okiria, has vowed to take drastic actions against leaders of government institutions who fail to utilize the funds allocated to their dockets in there. Speaking at the feedback meeting on the Uganda Support to Municipal Infrastructure Development, abbreviated as the USMID, a program in Lira City on Friday, Dr. Okiria warned that those that who fail to absorb the funds will be interdicted and also face legal actions in there. But really, for us to solely witness money being returned to the consolidated funds despite how we need the money is really quite wrong, because at the end of the day the money is what you requested for, but really for you not to utilize it, then definitely that is really quite wrong. And this here saying, for me, I cannot see the devil, but I can see the person who alleges that the devil has used them. Also, that is something also where we did see her also issuing a warning, because at the end of the day you are going to be held capable. The devil who is not seen will not be paraded before the courts of law. And much as you want to give us that excuse that I was deceived by God, we are saying God did not, Satan, sorry, we are going to be saying, where did you meet Satan and what did Satan tell you? And that is something also at the end of the day which will be able to land you in prisons. And to avoid that, we must make sure that we return, and we do not return the money that has been given to us for us to attain development to the consolidated fund at the end of the financial year. And Lira City has received, that is 61.5 billion under the Youth Meet program, but has also really failed to utilize the funds, where we did see shillings 36.69 billion also really being returned to the consolidated fund. That is really quite wrong. That unfortunately, because the Youth Meet funds, actually we have seen them doing a lot of developments in Arua City and the other local governments. For instance, in Arua City, we have seen the roads also really being developed and tarmacked by the Youth Meet, and that is one thing also really at the end of the day where we are seeing infrastructure development. And Youth Meet has done similar things. In Terego, we have seen Youth Meet also really giving funds for different developments, which also really are taking shape today. But that also for us to return the money to the consolidated fund is really quite wrong. And we did see a contract being signed between Lira City Council and the Miss Nwami Group and Abaka Technical Joint Services. That's to execute the construction of 6 roads, which among others include Obankene, which is a 0.008 kilometer stretch, which costs shillings. That is also really worth 969.184197, where we did source in Oteberi, which is a stretch of 0.2 kilometers, also taking some money in there. Aber 0.204 kilometer stretch, also really taking some money in there, and many other roads that have been selected also really to be developed in there, and now the contracts have been signed. What awaits is the final progress of this road, because in Arua City up to date, the Mango Road has remained the Mango Road, and this is actually something where the money is said to be consumed by some people, and who are those who actually got this money. Up to now, investigations are still going on. But really, what happened to the funds? Much as the money was allocated, but up to date, the road has not been developed, and the road has just remained as it is. And that means you and I have to interest ourselves and find out who exactly we are behind the corruption, and also really taking that money in there. But nonetheless, we need to make sure money that is given also really realizes its cause. And this goes to the public servants. Really, for you to also consume the money into your own stomachs is really wrong. At the end of the day, people's curses and those who are going to be getting accidents on this road are going to be crowding to you, and the families also really who are going to be losing their relatives, for instance, their fathers, their mothers on these roads, are really going to be shedding their tears, and which at the end of the day will be able to be a curse to you. And we are saying corruption must be avoided. Money must be utilized in areas it was allocated for, and this is something also really at the end of the day which would also really bring in development, because when we talk about development, more of the sectors also really continue to lag behind. But that is something also really at the end of the day which we must also really ensure we talk about, because corruption continues surely to bite the economy very hard. At the end of the day, that is really where we need to also interest ourselves in. And financial year of 2022-2023, the Ministry of Lands, Housing and Urban Development again requested Lira City to undertake additional works to absorb the uncommitted funds under the program, and the city also, the council then resolved to undertake that's the beautification of Mayor's Gardens, and also the Numa ground on Tipa stage, installation of new solar street lights, a repair of existing street lights, and institutional strengthening of tune. That is also really where money has been allocated, worth billions in there. But really, how can we make sure we utilize the money is also really something that somebody out there could be interested in. And Lira City engineer and project manager Freddie Owini acknowledged that the contractors who have been given this progress documents and quotations were excellent, but their also the performance was disappointing, and that's something we did see happening following other projects that have been implemented in that area. Meanwhile, the resident city commissioner, Lawrence Ogolo, expressed frustration with the contractor's performance, with Ogolo stating also that he would have terminated the contract long ago if he had the power also to do so, because the works that they did maybe were very shoddy, and this is where we're saying shoddy works also need to be avoided. And maybe some of the contractors also really we need to also understand is that the procurement process also Mr. also by Gold Enterprises, and as the contract of beautification of Tipa stage is ongoing, and we did see also many other also issues being raised in that time at large, and that's where we are leaving that discussion aside. But how can also the different local governments make sure that the money that is being given to them does not return back to the consolidated fund? Because if at all it returns back to the consolidated fund, it means that also the local governments have to again reapply for this money, which also really does not come easily. And how do we make sure that these departments that receive the money also have some punishments, much as they fail to use the money? And this is where we are saying punishments also should be given to those departments who ask for this money and fail to utilize it, because that means also they are not serious. If at all maybe any department asks for this money and they return back to consolidated fund, to me I would suggest they need to have stringent measures and also really punishments that would also really enable other learn lessons from. And now let's leave that aside. Busoga teenage mothers seek inclusion in government funding is really another story that we are seeing in the past morning, where teenage mothers in Busoga sub-region where also want the enterprising ideas funded by government, a program including that also Miyoga and various development model to be incorporated among them in there. The government has set several programs with the main goal of eradicating poverty and increasing household incomes in the teenage mothers from Kibibi village, that's in Budono sub-county in Jinja City, and Butangaya sub-county in Namagera, those town council in Jinja district, say that they do not have national identity cards, a major also requirement for citizens to access and benefit from the government programs, and that has already rendered many of them out. And they now want the government to give them special consideration to enable them also to access such funds and set up also self-sustaining businesses in there. And Joyce, not real names, because she is a minor, a mother of one, says she says also she got pregnant at an early age, and she endured several challenges, including also alleged failure by her parents to provide also her needs, also what they also need to use in there. And however, Joyce is also reluctant to stay with the father of her child because he allegedly also neglected his parental obligations in there, and that means solely as a single parent she has to work very hard also to bring this child in. And that is how and why we are telling our young daughters, you must desist from that food. For now, you must concentrate on your books, because that man who is lying to you with the sweet words at this moment, at the end of the day, is also going to escape and run away from you once you tell them I'm pregnant. And this is one thing also where some youths do not want to listen to that word, I'm pregnant. And this is where at the end of the day I want to tell the girls, before you engage in that practice with any other person, you must make sure this person is actually the right one. Before you actually engage in that, this person could also first of all meet your parents and go and request your parents officially. That would also at the end of the day prevent you from what we call burden of also raising a child as a single parent in there. And to avoid that is quite simple. We must avoid this early sex. And then secondly, once somebody comes to you, you must make sure that you tell them to go and meet your parents. And before they meet your parents, no business. The zips must be closed. And for now, that is also really what we must take seriously, because at the end of the day, we are seeing a number of the girl child today suffering. And if I move in most of the places, you will realize that also really most of these girls are looking for work as maids, because they do not have, at times, sometimes they don't have the qualifications to work elsewhere. And now they look at this labor that is called maid work, and which is very much informal, as a form of also relief. And we have also seen them on the streets, mostly also really trying to do some small vending here and there, so that also really they can be able to raise some small money to also really feed their children in there, which is really wrong. And we are saying for you to avoid being culprit of such activity, you must ensure what I mentioned earlier on. And that is what brings us to the end of the first hour. This is the KOKOLIRIKO live show, and our final destination remains 9 o'clock. My name is Farish Majid. Stay tuned as we bounce back shortly.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
Mbappe, Cristiano Ronaldo, Harry Kane, Sané, Griezmann, Lewandowski, and many more. Who is your European star? We are very familiar with all German stadia. Trust us to give you the best Euro experience affordably. Catch the matches live on NBA Sport, channel 255 on antenna or channel 199 on Dish Decoder on Star Times. We got your stars. This message is brought to you by Star Times Solar. Star Times Solar, more than just solar.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
Alright, welcome back from that short commercial breather. We are back to continue with the program, and remember earlier on we were talking about lots of issues and where we started the discussions right from what happens on ED, where we did see a number of the leaders, more so the clergy that is under the Islamic faith, also really echoing out a number of messages, and we actually got messages across the country, and we also did see Muslims being rallied. That's from Arua City to embrace hard work. But really, these are some of the messages also which did take us into the second half of the first hour, and now we want to begin off the discussion right away with also the President Museveni's move on official graft, leaving MPs also in detention, and that's something we did see happening in there. And remember earlier on this month, also already on 6th of June, we did see His Excellency Yoweri Museveni calling upon the citizens, also already promising to fight against corruption. And could this be now the promise and the result of the promise that he did made? And this is something also already where somebody could be interested in understanding, because he made these promises and said he is going to be fighting corruption, and now could it be the answer and the revelation of the promises that he made? Definitely it could be yes. And now the arrest of 3 legislators, among others include the Luwengo District MP Sisi Namuju, Bunyole West MP, that's Yusuf Matembuli, and their counterpart of Busiki County, that's Paul Akamba, over corruption and budgetary distortion allegations has left many of their peers also already on edge. And remember, in this month, also already on 6th of June, His Excellency Yoweri Museveni also already admitted that corruption by politicians and civil servants was a major hindrance that is the country's development. And Museveni also already told the MPs that he had obtained also the evidence on a racket within Parliament and the Finance Ministry, also already where ministers and government departments we are being asked also already for bribes so that they can seize their budgets, and so that they could also increase their budgets, and leading to also the altering of the budget annually. And he actually made this also during the budget reading, and this is where many people were actually talking about corruption. And now, are we seeing the result of what he made? Definitely, I do not know, as the investigation into the matter is yet to climax, because it is court that is to declare maybe these people being innocent as being guilty, because that mandate is not actually for the other arms of government, but it is for judiciary to also do that. And he added that Parliament's office and State House, we are not immune. That's from the Vice, saying officials that solicit for money from investors are promising to link them up with the President also in there. 2 days later, the members of Parliament's Budget Committee were detained, arraigned before the court, and also remanded. In the prosecution also contains that the 3 MPs solicited a bribe from the Uganda Human Rights Commission so as to influence and increase in its budget allocations in there. And on Wednesday, the leader of opposition in Parliament, Mr. Joel Senyui, called for expanded corruption investigation to also include the Parliamentary Commission, accusing it of also lacking transparency and reportedly also holding secretive meetings with also some members without involving also the others in there. And this is also a form of corruption, because what is going to be discussed in these private meetings, it remains unknown, and definitely that is also going to be leaving so many people in shock or maybe in suspense. And that is why we are saying these secret meetings must be avoided. And this comes at a time where a section of parliamentarians led by Theodore Sechikubo are seeking about 100 signatures to censor 4 commissioners of their 1.7 billion allocation themselves in there. And some of the MPs have also claimed that the ongoing CID investigations have also sent shockwaves within the House, and also with some legislators opting to briefly take trips abroad and also to have also themselves also stay in there. And this is where maybe those who are corrupt are now looking for their visas where they had kept them, and also their passports to also fly away from the country. And we are saying remain there. If at all you engage in corruption, remain there. Do not run away, as the enforcement officers have to come to you, and you have to prove your innocence or guilt by also moving to court in there. If at all you are corrupt, you are going to be freed. But if at all you are guilty, definitely Kitalia or Luzira prison should be the home for you now, because this is where we did see one of also the headlines reading from VIP to Chitalia. And definitely you who is also currently moving in that car with AC, which also money you obtained in a corruption means also should be also going to, because at the end of the day, corruption has actually eaten the country very, very much. Many people have actually missed out services because of corruptness, and we are saying that shouldn't be the case, and we must avoid that. And that is quite simple, and we are saying corruption must be condemned in stronger terms. And who exactly is to condemn corruption? Definitely it means I and you. And we are saying, as the viewer, if at all you are seeing somebody engaged in corruption, and much as the case could be small, feel free to report them maybe to the nearest agencies. And for those who are maybe interested in wanting to know which agency we are talking about, we are saying police or IG, where also they have the offices, and so that sort of investigations can be done. And this is where we are saying people must understand the issues of corruption, because sometimes people don't understand actually they engage in corruption, where they ask 5,000, they think that is service fee. But we are saying these offices are already catered for using taxpayers' money. And who exactly is the taxpayer? It is me and you, and plus them, because whether they like it or not, they have to pay taxes. And we are saying to streamline operations against also these corruptnesses, we must also avoid corruption. And now, for us to avoid corruption, it comes with its own challenges and also its own advantages, and I wouldn't also want to talk about its challenges because they remain known. Sometimes people believe also these officers who are corrupt cannot be reported anywhere, and we are saying that is eating up also the service delivery. And the advantage could be that officers that are also having corrupt people are definitely going to be having new faces who will be able to fear, and that's where also people need to be arrested for corruption, as we have seen over the years. And some of the MPs now who are planning to run away, we are saying you remain here. We must fight corruption together until the wave also settles in there. If I told you not corrupt, then why do you want to run away? And this is where we are going to be starting observations and looking at the different constituencies of who exactly has left the place, so that slowly we understand them, because we need to understand who exactly is promoting corruption. Because if at all we're not doing that, then definitely we are going to be leaving out service delivery also at the expense of some few individuals. And that means that me and you have to start now looking at our MPs. Are they around? If at all they have sneaked, then definitely they could also be part of the corrupt fights also we are talking about. And now that remains the voters, because 2026 is not very far. At the end of the day, you need to also make sure the leaders that you are voting are not going to be the leaders that are going to be promoting corruption, and corruption remains actually a deadly vice. And we must condemn that in the strongest terms. And to condemn it, it's not going to be my duty alone. Me and you have the zeal and must have the mandate of also really loving to fight against corruption in the. That is one thing also we did see happening. And according to also the several Auditor General's reports, Uganda loses about 40% of its budget financing. That is to corruption, because really look at 40% and we are left with about 60%, and which we have to share. And that means also that is really really quite huge, and we must make sure that corruption does not go on. And sources within Uganda Police CI department say detectives will also be targeting also the accounting officers. And when I talk about the accounting officers, whom do I mean? I mean the district the district chief administrative officers and the city town clerks, and that's where also we are going to be also engaging ourselves in. And we did see also the civil service and district accounting officers also must also be checked in there, and that would also mean we must make sure that we interest ourselves in the fight against corruption. And on June 12th, Ramadan Gobi, the Finance Ministry Permanent Secretary and Secretary of the Treasury, admitted that MPs have been tampering with also the budget for 4 years, moving also government also priorities and replacing them with other needs in their constituencies. And that is one thing also which has very much been affecting budget. And the four include that's leader of opposition that's in Parliament, who have also been arrested for also corruption tendencies in their way. Over 1 billion case is still being investigated, and somebody also could be interested in understanding who these MPs are. And this includes the former leader of opposition in Parliament, that is Honorable Matthias Impuga, Bukoli Central MP Solomon Sirwanyi, Zombo District Woman MP, that is Esther Foyochan, and Rubanda District Woman MP Prosi Akampurira in there, who have also being investigated in there. And then we are going to be following until when this matter will also be addressed, because many of them you have seen some MPs and also some leaders also raising concern about this same matter, and how do we make sure also this matter does not go on, because we did see recently also the caucus sitting and also saying we must also we did see also some meeting going on also for one of the top organs of the political parties in there to also have these colleagues interdicted. And how are we going to be seeing that? At the end of the day, we are going to be following up on that matter, and when the right time comes, we shall be here also to keep informed of what exactly happened in there, and then how this also continued. And that is one thing also we need to also make sure that we love fighting against, because corruption continues a dangerous vice eating up our economy, and we must also now condemn it in the strongest terms. And moving on from that, Ham has accused the KC of mismanaging city trees, and this is city businessman, also known as Hamis Chigundu, alias Ham, has expressed his disappointment and sadness over the alleged mistreatment also of that is 100,000 royal palm trees. He donated that to Kampala Capital City Authority in January also this year. In that's something also did see happening, and the trees were not also meant to boost the city's green initiatives, but Ham claims also that the KC employees are poisoning and also destroying them also in there, and the trees also which to him also were meant at first of all make the city greener, and I believe that would also make the city more palatable. And this is where people must make sure they live in where they can be able to eat from, and this is where we're saying actually one of these activities, much as in the cities we have the ACs, we still need natural air, we still need the fresh air, and planting trees actually would make that possible. And now for us to also see trees being donated and planted and them not growing, that is really quite wrong, and making us very much also unhappy. And we must make sure we also embrace planting trees. And my humble appeal also to the businessman within a real city, just like Ham in Kampala, we could also pick a leaf from and also do the same, and also plant trees in different streets of a rural city. And that would also make you at the end of the year and also at the end of your time also be remembered in there, because we are not going to be on this earth for life. There will come a time where we shall be able to be returning back to the Lord. And really, how are we going to be returning? What kind of legacy are we leaving behind with the wealth that God bestowed upon us? And this is where we are saying we must make sure we give back. We're not going to be giving back sometimes all the time in form of cash, and such also initiatives will also be very good. And for Muslims, I believe Sadaqah Jariyah also will be coming through also planting such trees, and this is where your blessings will be able to remain endless. And we must make sure that we also engage in such. And if we not engage in such, and then at the end of the day, we are not going to be getting that heart of wanting to share with our colleagues. And we are saying this is really wrong, and just like Ham, more businesses could come to the rescue and also really save the tree, the city from what we call the negative repercussions of the environment also in there. And this could be quite simple by planting these trees that could actually not take a lot of space within the cities. And I believe this night nice small trees that we are seeing also being planted in cities would actually make the city more nice, and that would also at the end of the day make the city more beautiful. The trees we acquired in January ahead of the Non-Aligned Movement Summit, where they were also planted among the major city roads, which among others include the Mukwono Road, Yusufule Road, and Nile Avenue plus Gaba Road, among other areas where these seeds also transported and also spreaded and also planted. But up to now, these trees are not taking shape, and now the person who donated them has accused KCA. And what exactly is KCA going to be doing to make sure that this also is not also just like that? And we need to make sure these trees are not donated in vain. At the end of the day, we need the trees to grow, and at the end of the day, that would also make us very, very much happy in there. And he questioned the country's development strategy, stating that also with such impunitive acts and prosecuted, we have a long way to develop the country. And KCA's acting spokesperson Daniel Nwabaine responded to also that the authority recently reviewed the city's green development and decided to also transplant some of the palm trees to other appropriate areas, citing also the potential obstruction of traffic visibility, the CCTV cameras and the electric lines in there, and that is how they also responded in there. Mr. Nwabaine acknowledged that some of the trees had dried up and wilted, and dismissed also the allegations of poisoning in there, and he urged the city dwellers to keep their animals safe to prevent stray animals from destroying the city greenery in there. And yes, when we talk about the animals in the rural city, this is actually the same thing, where the trees and the greener grasses and also really which were planted along the streets, we are said to be destroyed by these stray animals. And who exactly allows these stray animals to also move freely within the city center? And that is really quite wrong, and this at the end of the day has also already affected the growth of the trees. And what we are saying is we are now also really going to be following up on that matter, and we must make sure also really this matter does not go on, and we need to also really make that a reality, because if at all we are talking about beautification of the city, and then efforts that are also being put by government or private stakeholders is just wasted like that, then that is really quite wrong. At the end of the day, we are not going to be seeing many people having their heart to also really share with their colleagues. At the end of the day, that would also really mean a lot. And we are saying that matter should also really be avoided for the city dwellers who move. We must avoid moving on this grass, because this is not also really a move way. We must also really avoid that, because we are talking about animals. Sometimes we also really have animals with two legs who also have small minds, but really continue to move and cross from where these grasses are, and that is really, really wrong. And we must avoid that in the strongest terms, and that will also, at the end of the day, make us, first of all, realize the development that we want, and much as the government of Uganda is putting strides and also to realize development, at the end of the day, we also really have to make sure that we support the government. And how are we going to be supporting the government? It's quite simple. We must avoid tendencies that also really pull the government back. That would also really make us proud, and that's really something at the end of the day I really feel we need to talk about, and that also does summarize the topic. And now let's look at what's happening in Entebbe International Airport, where airport emergency exercise alarms Entebbe community. And recently we did see also the Entebbe community also really being also scared, because they wanted to understand what is happening, and this was during the training of the staff of Entebbe on handling also the emergency issues in the residence near Entebbe International Airport. We are startled also by the blaring sirens and rushing ambulances on Friday morning, but it was just a stimulation exercise to test the airport's emergency response. Many did not actually know what was happening. Maybe they thought also maybe an aeroplane had developed a problem, because sirens and ambulances, if at all, they make the noise. Some people may also not understand what exactly is happening, and I really feel that is where they need to also really, first of all, sensitize the community of what is happening. But really, this was said to be testing how prepared the authorities at Entebbe International Airport are, and the 2-hour drill also, which began at 11 a.m., stimulated a plane crash with 100 passengers and crew on board, resulting in 25 fatalities and critical injuries. And the exercise aimed to evaluate the airport's readiness to respond to emergencies involving various agencies like firefighters, medical staff, and also rescue teams in there. And several ambulances and medical staff went to the scene, and their readiness to rescue and rush the critically injured to hospital in Entebbe and Kampala was tested. And the exercise also really saw medics from various hospitals, Uganda Airlines, Uganda Red Cross Society, and Kazuri Medical Police, Medical Services, and also Uganda Post Defense Air Forces, Aviation Police, and also Entebbe Entebbe Police Fire Brigade, among others, already coming up for that, also to, testing in there. The Director General of Uganda Civil Society Aviation Authority, Mr. Fred Bamwesje, explained that such exercise are mandatory also for international airports and help identify areas of improvement in there, and I believe they actually obtain some of the areas where they need to also identify and improve on, because accidents are sudden and unexpected occurrings, but we must always be prepared for them. And once we're prepared for them, the number of lives that could be lost at the end of the day are going to be reduced, and that is why we are saying we must be prepared at all times to avoid such accidents. And now he noted that UCCA has last carried out a potential emergency exercise in December 2020, while the full-scale emergency exercise was last done in November 2022, and despite the alarm caused, Mr. Bomesja assured that the exercise also really was necessary to ensure the airport's preparedness for any potential emergencies, and he also pointed out a certain passenger number and aircraft also really movements at Entebbe International Airport, with May 2024 also really recording that's 181,304 international passengers and a total of 28,334 increase from the same period also really in 2023 in there, and that means also really the number of people moving also really has increased, and we must make sure that these people's lives are actually very, very much prepared. And that means we must make sure at the end of the day, first of all, this number could also really be coming from the foreigners. We must make sure the foreigners are also protected. And many of times we have seen also the accidents of aeroplanes just at takeoff stage also really crashing in there. But really, how prepared are we as a nation in terms of such accidents? And that means testing the capability and abilities of the international airport staff is really, really necessary, and I really want to say more exercise need to be done in relation to that. And in relation to a cargo, imports we are also really recorded at 2,442 metric tons, and exports we are at 4,010 metric tons in May 2024 in there. And that is one thing also really I need to remind you of, because if at all we don't talk about that, definitely next time I could be the one moving maybe into international airport to fly elsewhere, because definitely to fly from one place to another is everybody's dream, unless you are somebody who does not love aeroplanes. But how safe is my life if at all the next day I decide maybe I get a chance of also flying outside Arua using an aeroplane, or maybe outside Kampala using an aeroplane out of Entebbe, maybe to other places across the world? Because definitely that is one thing also I will not be able to be limited to, because when the time comes I will definitely also get interested in flying. But really, how safe am I in terms of also these emergency accidents? And that is why such trainings are always very, very much important, and the airport staff now must take that also really keen interest, first of all, in practicing what they also really learned after the testing in there. And that is one thing also really which I feel I cannot be able to leave out as we move on with the show. And now to summarize our first hour with government sets ground rules for artisan and small scale miners, and remember, extraction of this also really minerals sometimes has left a number of challenges, and where many people have actually lost their lives after also really sand falling on them. And this is where the government of Uganda has moved now to regulate the operations of more than 1 million Ugandans who directly or indirectly benefit from that is artisanal and small-scale mining sector in there. And an artisanal miner is one who does not also have the ability to afford high-end technologies to mine, while a small-scale miner is one who has access to reasonable amount of also capital in there. And this is where we're saying now the government is actually going to come up and regulate their operations, and really ask the viewer, how do you think that is actually going to be impacting on them? And if you look at some of the areas in Uganda, we have areas of Karamoja, which actually also really say to be mining some of these minerals. But really, how do we make sure that the operations there are regulated is something also really, as the viewer this morning, we must make sure that we interest ourselves in. And most of these areas actually also really say they also need to be having these minerals, but how do you mine them? Because sometimes we have seen the effects also really being devastating. First of all, the ground where the soil, first of all, is left uncovered, and how can we make sure that also this matter does not also move maybe as it is? And this is where at the end of the day we also need to make sure we talk about an artisanal miner is actually one who does not have the ability. Meanwhile, a small scale miner is actually one who does not have the capital of about 50 million in there, and most of the artisanal miners have neglected the fact that they have access to mining without having proper technologies, and these have health-related effects in the near future. And this was according to Ms. Fiona Nyamutoro, the Junior Minerals Development Minister, who said this during a consultative meeting on the regulations of the ASM sector in Uganda, in Busia district, also recently in there. Ms. Nyamutoro said the government is going to teach all the central places that have a significant number of artisanal miners, so that also this is inclusive enough to ensure all issues are captured, and this is in a bid to help them have also a regulation in place that is appreciative for all people in there. And that is one thing also where we need to also make sure that the government first of all moves to these small scale miners, these miners who are doing also artisanal mining in there, to also engage and have their ideas before this regulations come in there, because at the end of the day we have seen many people benefiting from that, and also that is their form of livelihood. And if at all we come with also regulations which also may be pressing to them, at the end of the day we are going to be seeing many people being pushed away, and which wouldn't also be quite well. And we are saying people also need to be consulted, and the government needs to sit down with the small scale miners to also understand what exactly they are doing and why they are doing it so. And some of the changes, as he says, have introduced artisan mining licenses and small scale mining licenses whose process of acquiring she described as seamless. And some of the changes have also already been said there, and now for Nyamutoro also said for artisanal miners, once they organize themselves in groups, all they have to do is apply and pay the required registration fees of shillings 1 million, and then they can be supported by the government. And that is something also we didn't see in there, because many of times, sometimes people complain that they lack the necessary monies, and that is why they remain as small-scale miners, or partly perhaps also maybe people who are doing just mining for the sake. And Ms. Irene Nabatebe, the Permanent Secretary in the Energy Ministry, said that Uganda's mining industry is dominated by more than 1 million Ugandans who directly or indirectly also benefit from the ASM operations in there. And remember, recently in the budget, we also did see an increase that is also really channeled towards the mineral sector in there, because the government also really looks at also this sector as one of the sectors that would actually also improve on this, the citizens' also really ability to also really move out of poverty. And we did see also really on the minerals, Fiona Nyamutoro said the minerals mined by ASMs and widely distributed throughout the country include gold, tin, and tourmaline, and iron, and gemstones, limestone, marble, and many others also that continue to be mined in there. And not forgetting salt. Salt is actually a mineral that is really quite very much important, and today without salt many people cannot be able to survive. And maybe that is why we are saying we must also really interest ourselves, because definitely if at all this are not regulated, then definitely that is also really going to be having its own negative repercussions, first of all in the economy, and also really those people who continue to benefit both directly and indirectly, because we must make sure that their health first of all is guaranteed. And this is where we're saying before going to mining, we need to have regulations that also really look at the health of the workers, because sometimes it is also being dominated by the bosses who do not even know what their employees are going through. And that's why we're saying for those who are going to be engaging in the mining, we must make sure that their safety underground is protected. And this is where we need to also have the gumboots, they need to have the helmets, they need to have the breathing equipment, because for gold, I don't understand, they move underground for long distances, where they now need to have the helmets, they need to have the torches, because if you look at what is happening in DRC, where gold is happening, gold mining is happening, because it's where we have most often talk about gold, and we also very much quickly rush out to think about DRC and in areas of Kimberley where gold is being done. And I believe that is the same case also to what is happening in Uganda. We must make sure that the employees who are doing the gold mining also really have access also really to insurance. And that is what does bring us to the end of that discussion. We are going to be running for a short commercial breather, and when we bounce back, we are going to be doing more other discussions in there. For now, let's have this short rest as we bounce back shortly. My name is Suresh Majid. Stay tuned.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
Mbappe, Cristiano Ronaldo, Harry Kane, Sané, Griezmann, Lewandowski, and many more. Mbappe! Who is your European star? We are very familiar with all German stadia. Trust us to give you the best Euro experience affordably. Catch the matches live on NBA Sport, channel 255 on antenna or channel 199 on Dish Decoder on Star Times. We got your stars. This message is brought to you by StarTimes Solar. StarTimes Solar, more than just solar.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
Alright, welcome back from that short commercial breather. We are back for the KOKOLIRIKO live show, and our final destination remains 9 o'clock, and after 9 o'clock, Fota will be coming with the news bulletin Lubarati. But for now, let's look at some of the stories happening elsewhere, where in Bukedi the leaders there are now asking President Museveni to tighten the news on corruption, and this is one of the stories that we are seeing on the past morning, where a section of leaders in Bukedi sub-region have asked President Museveni to tighten the news on corruption, especially amongst the political class in also Uganda, who are benefiting at the expense of the taxpayers in there. And that is something also there we did see also the leaders also really making that call. This was during commissioning of the newly constructed Priest's House, that is in Chie Church of also Uganda in West Butama South constituency in Toro district also in there, where also the Bishop of Bukedi
West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
All right, welcome back from that technical challenge in there. But we're back to take you through up to the end of the program. And we were talking about the leaders from Bukedi sub-region asking President Yoweri Museveni to tighten the noose on the fight against corruption. And now we are seeing that happening, where a section of MPs have now been threatened, and where this follows the arrest of the 3 of their colleagues who have also been arrested after also saying that they also wanted to tamper with the budget. That is also something we did see happening in there. And this was also where the percentage, what people also love so much in a rural city, where the issue percentage is percentage. I believe that has already gone wrong for them. And now they are facing the charges, and then they want to also see if at all what they did is true. And that is one thing also that is said to be wrong. And also where we did see the finance ministry also indicated that at least 40% of the money is actually being stolen in corruption out of also the 100% in there. That means also the government is left with about 60%. To also have its many activities to be done in there. And that is one thing that we did see earlier on, and now the leaders in there want also President Museveni to tighten his nose on the fight against corruption. And that is one thing also I must also remind you of. And I believe that should also be called upon by the leaders of Bukedi alone, and the leaders of the entire country actually should be engaging in that. And that would also make us also understand and also realize the fight and the success in the terms of solely fighting corruption in there. That would also be well for me as a citizen. And both testify that most of the government programs are stalling across the country due to corruption tendencies, and which also is the truth. Because you see what is happening recently during the PDM, and many people actually raised challenges that also the money that was meant to be for them were also being chopped by some of the officials. And this is where if somebody was to get 1 million, the PDM officials would actually chop 20,000. This was also said to be for registration, for this, for that, which is really wrong. This is a form of corruption, and then many people do not actually get the services as they require. And we are saying that corruption must be avoided. And now the leaders' call comes at a time where the ministers are facing charges of corruption, including also the one from Bukedi sub-region who are currently on remand in there. And that is one thing also we are following up on. And now let's leave that aside. Let's look at what's happening in the whole procurement, where policy on all vehicles proposed for sustainable development. Also, that's something also we are seeing on the past morning, where the principal of Nakawa Vocational Training, Mr. Fred Mwanga, has called for a comprehensive policy on the management and also of end-of-life vehicles, so as to also address challenges posed by old and used vehicles, including that's environmental pollution, illegal use of number plates, and inefficient disposal of car parts. And that's something also we are seeing on the past morning. And Mwanga made these remarks during the graduation of 100 trainees skilled in end-of-life also vehicle recycling also technology at Nakawa Vocational Training Institute, an initiative also supported by the United Nations Industrial Development Organization, abbreviated as UNIDO, and also the Japanese mission to Uganda, with the aim of also addressing environmental and security challenges posed by old and used vehicles. And today you realize most of these accidents are also sometimes caused by the old vehicles, which are also said to be the DMCs, the dangerous mechanical condition vehicles, as many people prefer calling them. But these are also the old vehicles as also being addressed in there. But really, how do we make sure that these old vehicles which emerge on the road also are not posing, first of all, a risk to the lives of the people? Because at the end of the day, if at all somebody is going to be driving a DMC that has no brakes, has no lights, they're going to be risking people's lives, and then they cause accidents. But really, how do we make sure that this does not go on? And that is where we are saying people must also avoid the tendencies of that. And that would also mean we need to also engage ourselves, first of all, in these issues, and then make an understanding of what exactly and how exactly we can be able to be using these vehicles well. Because I believe all vehicles sometimes are very much helpful. And if you really look at what's happening on our roads, most in Western Sub-region, these vehicles that are old are doing a lot. And this is where we're saying, instead of also using them on the roads for transport, we need to take them to the farms. And this is where the farms also need to be starting to use, maybe for transporting their goods from a particular place to a particular area, maybe from the garden to the stores. And that will also where that's to me where the vehicles needed to be also stopped at. Because if you see them on the roads, they are threatening the lives of so many people, and maybe also they want to cause accidents. And that is one thing also where I need to leave that discussion aside, as we are getting to the end of the discussions, and so many issues continue to happen in there. And now to keep if you reminded, the MP who was granted bail was again rearrested just outside the court premises, and their two colleagues, which among others include Namuju and Matembuli, have been denied bail, and the anti-corruption court in Kampala has turned down the bail pleas of legislators, that is Sisi Namuju and Yusuf Matembuli, who are facing corruption charges in there. However, the court granted bail to Busiki County Member of Parliament, that is Paul Akamba, who is also already facing similar charges. Mr. Akamba was released on a cash bond of 30 million. With this suit, is also required to pay a non-cash bond of 100 million cash. But there was also drama outside the court when the Namutumba legislator's temporary freedom was less cut short, when he was immediately also rearrested by detectives outside the court premises after court granting him also the freedom to move and also be on bail. Remember, the government of Uganda, under the laws, also permits also a suspect to have a right to a fair trial, and that's why we are saying you are not guilty until proven. Also, you're not guilty until proven by the courts of law, and that's where also sometimes where the two have to work hand in hand. But if at all somebody has permitted that, then at the end of the day we see another arm also returning that way. And what does that mean? That is also something where we need to also interest ourselves in, because if at all the judiciary also had the mandate, then somebody who might not necessarily comes to arrest them in there, that is really quite unfortunate. And that's why we are saying these tendencies also really must be avoided. But really, how can we make sure that we avoid this? Definitely, that is something also really, I don't know what we need to do. But there was a drama outside the court, and where we didn't see this man also being arrested, and Bunyolo East MP Matembuli's bail was denied because one of his sureties did not meet all the necessary requirements, and that is something also where we didn't see that happening. And Luengo 1 MP, Sisi Namuju's application was rejected due to her failure to provide a letter confirming her residence in there. But both MPs have been remanded to Luzira prison until 17th, where their case will be again heard. And the anti-corruption court was bustling today with the members of parliament, commissioners, relatives, and friends of the three MPs who were also rearrested on Monday on charges of soliciting, that is a 20% kickback from the budget also of Uganda Human Rights Commission in there. And some relatives and friends gathered outside the crowded court premises, listening intently to the proceedings inside. And as they accused Namuju, Akamba, and Matembuli entered the dock, and Chief Magistrate Joanna Chiro granted Akamba bail after also his sureties, Miss Mariam Naigaga and Henry Chibadia, met the required conditions. On Mr. Akamba was also ordered to surrender his passport and pay a cash bond of 13 million shillings, with these sureties already paying an uncash bond of shillings 100 million each there. And Matembuli's bail application was rejected after one of his sureties, also identified as Minsa Namkose, failed to present a letter confirming her employment as a development officer in Mukono in there. And that is one thing where we did see. As a result, both Namuju and Matembuli were returned back to Luzira prison until June 17th, when the case will again be revisited in there. And the prosecution accused the court that investigations were complete, and they were also ready to proceed with the trial at any time also in there. As court adjourned, the defendants were taken back to custody, and their supporters and relatives lined up to see the legislators also be taken outside in there. Supporters of MPs who were also denied a bail expressed disappointment, vowing to return on the next day after also meeting the necessary requirements also in there. And after MP Akamba was released, he was immediately rearrested by J80 officers outside the court, amid his scarful also being whisked away in there. And that is already one thing also that does bring us to the end of today's discussions. I hope you had a wonderful time right from the time it began until it's out of the morning, as we get to the climax. And this is also to pave way for all of the news team to come through and also let you know of what exactly is happening. And I hope as well you had a wonderful Eid Day celebrations, because we also had Eid over the weekend, and this was yesterday, and I believe you had a wonderful time with your friends, with your relatives, and everybody out there. And that's really where I'm saying we must make sure that also really we celebrate the Eid with our people. And that is also really where many also people we are seeing also celebrating that day. And that brings us to the end of the discussions, and we are also really going to be bouncing back again tomorrow for the same discussions on the same television at the same time, and also with the same presenter, Farish Majid. And this will only be tomorrow. For now, we are stopping here, and we want to wish you a good day and a good week as well, because Monday is when we are beginning of our week with. And now, to begin off our week on a good note, we also have to pray to the Lord to also grant us a good week as well. And that also tells us where the end of the day's discussions will be able to stop.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
Berry Cottages is a stylish establishment which features accommodations with a restaurant, free private parking space, and a well-stocked bar located at Awata, Arua City, approximately 4 km on Arua Pakwach Road, 10 minutes drive to Arua City. The facility also has exquisite deluxe rooms, secure children's play area, and free Wi-Fi. Built for both the Ugandan business traveller and the international tourist travelling to Arua, either on a budget or on holiday. The rooms at Berry Cottages are just right for you. Choose to sleep in a comfortable Annex 1, Annex 2, or the Deluxe away from the hustle and bustle of the city. Berry Cottages. Refresh and reconnect.
Mbappe, Cristiano Ronaldo, Harry Kane, Sané, Griezmann, Lewandowski, and many more. Mbappe! Who is your European star? We are very familiar with all German stadia. Trust us to give you the best Euro experience affordably. Catch the matches live on NBA Sport, channel 255 on antenna or channel 199 on Dish Decoder on Star Times. We got your stars. This message is brought to you by Star Times Solar. Star Times Solar, more than just solar.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
You've been sitting in your questions, but I am the answer. I can see that you're tired, so tired, and that's okay. Take my hand, let me lead the way. Please let me lead the way. I'm right here, and I'm not